Gemini, something powerful is unfolding this week that could dramatically shift your financial reality, and it begins with one unexpected ending. If you're here watching this during the week of January 24th through the 30th, understand this. This is not just a video you stumbled across. This is a divine appointment. A sacred moment between your soul and a message that was destined to reach you now, not before, not after, but at this precise point in time. The doors of financial blessing are beginning to open for you, Gemini, but one door must close first. What ends this week was never meant to follow you into your next chapter. This is a moment of release, not of loss. There is a shift moving beneath the surface of your energy, and if you've been feeling restless, emotional, or uncertain without explanation, it's because you're standing at the edge of a powerful threshold. You are preparing to cross into a version of yourself that knows how to receive, not chase. And this reading isn't here to simply predict outcomes for you. No, it's here to activate something far more important, your readiness. Your ability to allow. Your permission to be chosen by grace. So take a breath. Still your mind. And speak into your life right now by commenting below. I am open to what is ending, and ready for what is being released into my hands. That one sentence is not just a comment, it's a spiritual decree. A confirmation to the heavens that you're willing to move forward with trust, even before the evidence appears. And in doing so, you are meeting the miracle halfway. This moment isn't about fixing anything. It's about finally understanding that what is being removed was only delaying what you truly deserve. There is a higher plan unfolding, and you don't have to manipulate it, question it, or beg for signs. You are the sign. Your presence here is proof that something greater is reaching for you. Before we begin, let me take a sacred pause to say thank you, for your presence here, for your support, for every like, every comment, every moment you choose to be part of this space. Each time you engage with this community, you are helping grow something rare, a place where divine truth meets real-life healing, where faith is lived, not just spoken. Miracle Signs Tarot exists because of you. And through your energy, these messages reach those who need it most, including you, right now. So I honor you. I thank you. And I invite you to stay with me until the very last moment of this reading, because Gemini, what the universe is about to reveal to you is nothing short of extraordinary. Let's begin, and tell me in the comments, what called you here today? What part of your soul needed this message to appear when it did? Gemini, this part of your reading brings us into one of the most sacred transitions your soul can experience, the moment when two energies, seemingly opposite, come together not to clash, but to complete each other. The world and death side by side is no accident. One speaks of completion, the other of transformation. Together, they create a divine threshold, a space where endings and beginnings blur, and you are asked to cross without resistance. The World card acknowledges everything you've survived, accomplished, and outgrown. It honors the version of you who held on when life felt uncertain, who kept going even when you didn't understand why. It says, you've reached a completion point, and it's okay to celebrate that, even if no one else sees what it cost you. But just as you begin to embrace that full circle moment, the Death card appears, not to take, but to invite. It's a call to surrender, not because you failed, but because what once served you no longer fits where your soul is headed. This is not an emotional breakdown. It's a soul realignment. Sometimes, we want to hold on to the old just because it's familiar, not because it's good. But this pairing reminds you, the longer you resist the ending, the longer you delay the promise. Because while the world congratulates you, death prepares you. And in that sacred in-between, you are being asked to do the hardest yet holiest thing. Let go of who you've been to become who you were always meant to be. This process can stir discomfort. You may feel grief, even fear, as the door begins to close. But as scripture tells us, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. Sometimes, surrender isn't weakness. It's the doorway to abundance. What you release now becomes the soil where new blessings will grow. This isn't about rushing ahead. It's about honoring the close of one season with gratitude, while trusting that what awaits is richer, deeper, and designed exactly for the person you are becoming. So take a breath, place your hand over your heart, and declare, I accept the ending that leads me into my true inheritance. Because once you do, the door won't just close behind you, it will open before you. Gemini, as we move deeper into your reading, the energy begins to soften, not because things are easier now, but because something inside you is finally ready to release what it's been holding for far too long. The presence of the moon moving through your 12th house this week is not a coincidence. In astrology, this is the house of the subconscious, hidden patterns, soul memory, and quiet healing. It's where things that were once buried begin to rise, not to haunt you, but to be seen, understood, and set free. You may find yourself remembering things you haven't thought of in years. Emotions you thought were resolved may come to the surface without warning. There could be tears for no clear reason, a heaviness in your chest, or even unexpected waves of nostalgia or sadness. But these moments are not regressions. They are sacred releases. It's as if your soul has decided, we can't carry this anymore. Let's put it down now. And the moon, in her gentle and mystical way, is giving you permission to do just that. This is not the time for rushing, fixing, or forcing clarity. This is the time to listen inwardly, to slow down enough to actually hear what your spirit has been whispering beneath the noise. Some of the clearest truths we ever receive don't arrive through words. They come through silence, through dreams, through the weight we finally notice we've been dragging behind us. That's why your dreams might feel more vivid right now, filled with symbols and messages. Your intuition is more active, more open, and more accurate than ever. Pay attention to the timing, to what repeats, to what stirs something inside of you. The universe is speaking, not loudly, but intimately. Gemini, this is a week of soul decluttering. It's not always easy, but it's deeply necessary. Think of it like cleaning a sacred space within you so that something new, something lighter, something truly aligned can finally enter. You're not losing control, you're making room. Sometimes, the breakthrough doesn't happen in the doing. It happens in the letting go. So if emotion rises, let it. If clarity doesn't come, trust it will. This is not the end of you, this is the unraveling of what you're no longer meant to carry. Give yourself the grace to release it. You're being prepared for something bigger. Something real. Something new. Gemini, after the emotional unraveling and sacred release we've just moved through, this next energy arrives not as a reward, but as a reflection. The Ace of Pentacles appears like a quiet sunrise after a long night, not demanding your applause, simply reminding you that something new is now possible because you had the courage to let go. This card is not just about money or opportunity. It's about alignment. It represents the moment when the inner shift you've made becomes visible in your external world. The truth is, abundance isn't something you chase. It's something that meets you at the level of your readiness. And this week, you're finally ready. The energy of the Ace of Pentacles is grounded and sacred. It doesn't scream for attention. Instead, it speaks through real-world signs, an email, an unexpected offer, a conversation that plants a seed, or a feeling in your gut that says, "This is it." It carries the frequency of clean wealth, the kind that comes not from pushing, but from deep inner alignment. You don't have to hustle for it. You simply have to be clear enough to receive it. Astrologically, this is supported by Earth energy activating your financial and physical houses. There's something stabilizing here, something tangible that's beginning to move. But this isn't a handout from the universe. This is a mirror of the inner work you've already done, the kind no one saw, but that the universe never missed. It's a reminder that when you clear emotional space, life fills that space with provision. But here's the key: you can't stay rooted in your old sense of worth and expect to hold this gift. This energy asks you to expand your capacity to believe that good things can happen without struggle. That safety doesn't have to come from control. That success can be peaceful. And yes, that you are allowed to have more, not because you proved your worth, but because you were always worthy. There's a softness in the way this gift arrives. But don't mistake that for weakness. The most powerful shifts often come in whispers. Trust the subtle signs. Walk with quiet confidence. Let your yes to life be simple. You've already done the hard part. Now it's time to let the blessing land. Gemini, the emotional space you've cleared is now making room for something, or someone, to stir from the shadows. With the Page of Cups and the Moon appearing together, we're not looking at surface-level interaction. We're sensing a current beneath the obvious, a quiet gaze, a frequency of feeling that's been orbiting around your field, even if no words have been exchanged. This energy speaks of a presence, a person who still carries your memory in a soft, unspoken place inside them. It might be someone from your past, or even a soul you've known before this lifetime. But either way, they feel you more than they dare admit. The Page of Cups often represents the beginning of emotional awareness, a tender, vulnerable realization of feeling. It's childlike, unsure, but deeply genuine. And paired with the Moon, these emotions are not fully understood, not even by the one feeling them. The Moon brings in the element of confusion, dreams, illusions, and emotional fog. Together, these cards suggest that someone is watching you not out of obsession, but out of unresolved connection. They may not know what to do with what they feel, so they stay silent. But make no mistake, they are present. From an energetic perspective, your growth may have activated a shift in them. You've been stepping into a new version of yourself, and sometimes when that happens, those who once knew us only recognize the version they can no longer reach. They sense your expansion, and it brings both admiration and fear. That fear may be what's keeping them from reaching out, especially if they feel unworthy or unsure of how to approach you now. This is a moment not to chase answers, but to trust your intuition. Dreams might be more vivid right now. You may see signs, symbols, or feel waves of emotion that aren't fully yours, especially around the time of the full moon or in quiet moments. These are echoes of that connection. And while clarity may not come immediately, you're being guided to honor what you sense. You don't need to respond, explain, or fix anything. Sometimes just acknowledging that an invisible thread still exists is enough to soften the energy. Let yourself be curious without clinging. Let their silence teach you something about your own growth. Not every presence needs to re-enter your life. Some simply return to mirror how far you've come. Gemini, coming out of the soft, mystical energy of emotional memory and unseen connection, we now arrive at a part of your reading that asks for clarity and quiet strength. The Five of Swords is never a card that whispers. It arrives when there's friction in the air, when you're surrounded not just by inner shifts, but by outer noise that challenges your growth. This energy isn't always visible. Sometimes it shows up as subtle resistance from others when you start shining a little brighter, speaking a little clearer, or choosing yourself a little more. Other times, it's a familiar voice, internal or external, that tries to convince you to play small again, to doubt what you know, to question your own intuition. In astrology, this type of interference often arises when your personal planets, like Mercury or Venus, transit through sensitive degrees or receive squares from Saturn or Pluto. You begin to feel blocked, not because you're wrong, but because your energy is shifting so fast that the people and systems around you feel unsettled. It's important to remember, resistance doesn't mean stop. It means you're pushing through something real. This card asks you to be mindful, not paranoid, not reactive, but observant. Who gets uncomfortable when you're clear? Who questions your worth when you stop justifying your boundaries? And more importantly, whose opinions have you internalized so deeply that you're now editing your truth before it even leaves your mouth? The Five of Swords is a call to reclaim your mind. Not to argue, not to convince, but to simply decide what energy no longer deserves access to your decisions. Let them think what they will. You're not here to win arguments, you're here to win back your peace. And you can't do that if you keep feeding the noise with your attention. If heaviness starts to rise this week, from a conversation, a message, or an old fear, don't suppress it. But don't entertain it either. Just notice. Breathe. Return to the calm knowing that you are not being held back. You are being shown what no longer belongs. And when you release the need to fight, you make space for truth to speak for itself, quietly, steadily, and undeniably. The storm may swirl around you, but it doesn't have to get inside you. Stay anchored in what you know. That is your protection. That is your power. Gemini, after everything we've uncovered in this reading, the endings, the emotional release, the hidden watchers, the resistance, we arrive at the most sacred moment, the choice. Judgment isn't simply a tarot card about being evaluated, it's about awakening. It's the moment when the soul, after sleeping through cycles, finally hears the inner call loud enough to respond. You're not being judged, you're being invited. Invited to rise. Invited to stop repeating. Invited to become someone your past self once dreamed of but couldn't yet reach. This card comes with clarity, not confusion. It doesn't ask if you're ready, it tells you that you already are. What it asks is, are you willing? Are you willing to stop circling the same question? Are you willing to release identities built from survival? Are you willing to trust that what's next doesn't require you to earn it harder, but to align with it deeper? Judgment often shows up during times when you're being tested not through chaos, but through choice. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as deciding not to respond the same way to an old trigger. Sometimes it's choosing to say yes to an opportunity even when your fear says wait. Sometimes it's no longer explaining why you're different, and just being different. Astrologically, this is like a Pluto moment, transformational, irreversible, soul-driven. And energetically, it's a return to your inner authority. Not the version of you that lives for validation, but the one who lives from purpose. The one who knows that alignment is louder than applause. You've crossed thresholds in this reading, Gemini. You've let things die. You've seen what still lingers. You've felt the resistance. Now, you're standing in the clearing. And what happens next? That part is entirely yours. This is not a push to act out of pressure, it's a reminder that you get to choose again. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. The permission is already within you. And the proof? It will show up the moment you say yes. Whatever you do next, let it be from alignment, not fear. From truth, not habit. From soul, not scarcity. The call is sounding, not to pull you back into something, but to lift you out. Step forward, Gemini. The life you've been quietly preparing for is finally calling you by name. Gemini, if you've made it to this point in the reading, I want to thank you, not just for watching, but for showing up for yourself. This hasn't been a light journey. It's been a layered one. A deep one. And if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, a little cracked open, maybe even a little more aware of what you need to release, that's not weakness. That's awakening. You didn't just listen to a tarot reading today. You sat with your truth. You stood in the quiet center of your own transformation. And that, dear soul, is everything. You've seen that a powerful financial shift is not just possible, it's near. But to receive it, you're being asked to loosen your grip on what no longer feeds your spirit. You felt the tug of the past, the echo of someone watching, the distractions that try to pull you back into who you used to be. But you've also been reminded of your power to choose again, to answer the call of your soul, and to claim the inheritance that's always been yours, not because you earned it, but because you're aligned with it. So now I ask you, what are you willing to lay down in order to rise into what's next? What patterns, people, or inner beliefs are you ready to leave behind so that peace, provision, and purpose can take their rightful place in your life? Can you feel the future tugging on you gently, not to scare you, but to remind you of how much more there is waiting? If this reading stirred something in you, even if you can't name it yet, I encourage you to say it out loud. Or better yet, write it in the comments so it becomes real. Declare it, I am ready to receive the gift God has set aside for me. That one sentence may be simple, but it carries the frequency of surrender, of readiness, of trust. And that's where miracles begin. Before you go, take a breath. Feel what's different in you now, even if just a little. And ask yourself, what if this week was the week it all started to shift? What if this was the moment you stopped circling and started choosing? If you're ready to walk that new path, If this reading spoke to you, even in whispers, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel. Here at Miracle Signs Tarot, this space exists to guide, comfort, and empower you, not just with insight, but with spiritual clarity you can carry into real life. Thank you for allowing me to walk beside you today. I'm honored to be part of your journey, and I pray this message finds root in the places you've been quietly hoping for breakthrough. Tell me in the comments, what part of today's reading spoke directly to you? What did your spirit recognize that your mind may still be catching up to? I'll meet you there, in the quiet space between your old self and your next miracle.